So very good morning everybody and welcome you all to the third day session of 5F Farming Conference. So let's begin with our next session. It's about PPP, panel discussion, scope of partnership, private-public, private for crop improvement program, multi-institutional, multi-geography with global relevance. I request moderator of the session, Dr. CLL Gaura sir, co-founder GRSV Consulting Service, to please come on the dais. I request reporter Dr. DB Lyad, Associate Professor of MPKV Rauri, please come on the dais.
Good morning, everyone. So, we will be starting with the first session for day 3. And as Dr. Aparna mentioned, we will be talking about PPP, public-private, private-private, and all combinations thereof. And we are looking at the PPP in terms of what are the challenges and what are the possibilities, any lessons learned in the past, and what we can recommend for the future to go. So, I had circulated a list of points that the presenters, the panel members need to address, but I think we can try to skip point number 1, a brief analysis of the need for partnership, because we all know that partnership is key in the current day context for research and development in the seed sector. So, let us start from point number 2, looking at the comparative and competitive advantages of the public sector vis-a-vis the private sector. And then number 3, since the private sector companies now have strong R&D setups, what are the implications on the type of projects that the public sector institutions should now be looking at? Number 4 is what are the perceived limitations of the private sector in accessing the germplasm. Some of it was discussed yesterday and day before, but in terms of the partnerships, we can look at what are the bottlenecks that are there, and also suggestions how to overcome or ease these bottlenecks. Next is how this BDA, the Biodiversity Authority rules and regulations, are affecting the germplasm exchange within and between the public and private sector, especially across the countries globally. Then we are going to look at what are the continuing concerns and the accrued benefits of the PPP for both public and private sectors and to the end user, that is the farmers. And then finally, we look at how does the plant breeder rights or the patented technologies affect the partnerships in the PPP module, and then possible policy interventions that may be needed, whether through the government or otherwise, so that we can recommend through the conference. So with this, maybe I would like to request Dr. Vijay Paranjape to come up and make the presentation. As I said, I will be a little strict because there are conditions which force me to complete the session as planned by 11:30. So let us keep to the time. Thank you.
So I think while the presentation is being put up, so I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to give this talk, and also Aparna and Narayanan for inviting me for this particular program. So I'm going to discuss about the BT eggplant story in Philippines and Bangladesh. And the reason I chose this, the reason I chose this topic was it is aligned with the theme of the conference, which says that taking the Indian research to outside and a PPP. So I think both these components are addressed in this particular project. Okay, so eggplant is grown in India, Bangladesh, and Nepal, and fruit and shoot borer is one of the major problems associated with eggplant. You know, farmers spray almost every day to control the fruit and shoot borer, and I don't think there is any variety or a hybrid which is available which can resist the fruit and shoot borer, although there are some reports, but still it's not that effective. And it's also known that the Criven-AC gene, which controls lepidopteran pest, which has been proven both in cotton as well as in corn and maybe in soya also. And so this technology was available, okay. And so Indian company Mahiko was able to introduce this particular gene into their eggplant varieties, and the event they call is EE1 event, which was able to give a protection against fruit and shoot borer. And taking this technology to other countries would be to backcross the event into the local market preferred varieties in those countries. So there was a problem which was common across the three countries, and a solution was available. It was only how to implement it. And at that time, it was in 2002 when USAID came up with the request for proposal, and they said that we have to use a biotech approach to bring in control fruit and shoot borer or any insect pest in Southeast Asian region. So with that objective, Cornell made a bid for it along with Sathguru, and they secured a project, and that was called ABSP2. Maybe some of you may already be knowing it, ABSP2. And the objective of that project was to bring the partners together and start the development of the technology in the respective varieties in those countries. So we had a partnership between Cornell, Mahiko, the Indian company, and then we had university from Philippines, Bangladesh Agricultural Research Institute, and also 3 universities and institutes from India. And Sathguru Management Consultant played a role of an anchor to bring all these partners together, manage the project, and that was the mandate given to Sathguru. So the objective of the first phase of the project was to develop the technology, and by end of 2014, the technology was available in all the varieties and hybrids in all the 3 countries. So the step which was left was going for the approval. So all the 3 countries went together to seek the approval, and as you know, Bangladesh got the first approval, Philippines got the next approval just the last month, about 6 months ago, and we are in the still same stage. So after the end of ABSP2, there was another project which was again funded by USAID. That was to scale up the technology. So they knew that by that time, the technology is available at least in one country, if not in other countries. But in Philippines, they knew that, okay, it was almost there, though it was not approved. And India could have been approved any time. So with that intention, a request for proposal was released by USAID again, and that was for scaling up the technology, and it started from 2015 to 2021. And that really Bangladesh benefited from it because they saw the scale up of the technology, more farmers adopting it. And now, just last year, they came up with a new RFP. They saw that, okay, this technology, if it has to sustain those 4 varieties, or varieties are not enough, we need to bring in private sector participation and also bring in the second generation product, because at any time you may know that a resistance can come in, and there were other challenges with the eggplant varieties which were used in Bangladesh. So currently we are in the 3rd phase that's started in 2021. The objective is to bringing the second generation product, involving private sector participation. Yeah, so Bangladesh took the lead, and I think it was driven, it was a political which was really made it more successful. Technology was known to everybody, okay, technology was proven in the field, so there was no issue with the technology. So Mahiko event was backcrossed into Bari varieties, and about 9 varieties, popular varieties growing in that country, Bangladesh, were chosen for backcrossing. Part of the backcrossing was done in Mahiko, and the remaining back processing completed in Bari, and they went for the trials. They used the data generated in India by MICO, field data from Bangladesh, and they were able to submit the submit the dossier for regulatory approval. And they got the approval. 4 varieties were approved and 5 were not approved because there were some performance related issues. So 4 varieties were approved. And as I said, it was the will of the agriculture minister who said that I want to feed 20 million people in this country, and I just won't take any more criticism for it, and they went with it. So they were successful in launching the technology. So how is the technology currently being adopted in Bangladesh? It's via PPP model. So we have several public sector partners who are really working with it. Bari is a technology owner, I would say, because the technology was licensed by MICO to Bari. So they are involved in testing breeder seed production, foundation seed production at a small quantity. And so that's their role. Then you have a Department of Agriculture and Extension. They do out the extension activities. We have a BADC, which is Bangladesh Agricultural Development Corporation. It's the equivalent of NSCI involved in seed production. So they were involved in seed production. We also partnered with Farming Future Bangladesh for communication, like how to promote the technology in Bangladesh. Then MICO has been continuously providing technical support to Bari, and in terms of training the people, capacity building, training was conducted in MICO as well as in Bangladesh. So they have been very providing the support to the public sector partners in Bangladesh. Our role was to anchor all the partners together, because what I felt was, I don't know about how the public PPP worked, but what I realized was there should be somebody to anchor. And maybe one more reason why I feel this partnership is working well, because there is a donor, somebody is funding the partnership. So maybe that could be one of the reasons why I feel that this partnership is moving well at this moment. So after the launch in 2014, it was just approved in 2014. So initially, from 2016 onwards, Bari has been carrying out demonstration trials every season in different parts of Bangladesh. Their job is to promote the technology, showcase it to the farmer. So they have they conduct field days, they invite the farmers, nursery people, everybody is invited to showcase the technology. Then later on, Bari realized that they cannot do a lot of extension, so they brought in the Department of Agriculture Extension, and they have a good network of extension professionals all over Bangladesh. So they were roped in, and they started. So Bari started giving seeds to them, and they started promoting the technology in different parts of Bangladesh. Then Bari realized that okay, they are not the seed producers, so they have to bring in somebody else who will produce the seeds for them. So they brought in BADC. So now all these 3 partners came together, and they came one by one. Bari started involving them, but then we realized that okay, these partners are not talking to each other. So there is again a gap. So we had to bring all the partners together. And we work just like a private sector. Like I called a meeting, I brought all the stakeholders together at the beginning of the year. We set the goals, who will be doing what, So that way now all 3 are together, and we meet before the season, after the season. The way private sector works. That's what we are trying to bring in there. And for the last 3-4 years, it is only increasing the adoption. So now we have reached a stage where only 4 varieties were released, and Bangladesh has several varieties. Eggplant is eaten almost every day in different parts of Bangladesh. There's thousands of varieties, and this technology is only in few varieties. So the adoption there is a limit to how much you can adopt this technology, because these varieties are not suitable throughout the geography. So there is a need to introduce the technology into newer varieties. And what we also realized, and USAID also realized, that to sustain it, we need to bring in a private sector partner, a local private sector partner, because we know how private sector partners, BT technology was successful in India because of private sector partnership, and that's something very missing there. And the current phase of the project is to bring in the private sector partners. And government also government does not have much confidence in the local seed companies. So that's also a challenge we are facing there. So, but we are trying to build their capacity so that they can also contribute towards the growth of this particular technology. So several independent, and this is just the benefits the farmers have derived, and independent studies carried by us, IFPRI, the project, Bari, basically the technology works in farmers' field. There's normally without BT technology, more than 50% crop is destroyed. Farmers save 61% in pesticides, and income is definitely more. And I have visited the field several times. When the farmer is harvesting it, he just doesn't bother actually. Just picks all the fruits, puts it in basket, and sends it to the market. Means he really does not have to see whether there is a hole or a damage is there. Yeah, I am done actually. So what is the next step for Bangladesh? Okay, as I said, bring in newer varieties, implement stewardship practices both in lab and field, because that's very critical for sustaining the technology. Development of second generation product. So the current varieties are wilt susceptible. Wilt is a major problem again. So we are trying to see if we have a wilt tolerant variety with BT eggplant. Recently we have started working with the nurseries where do grafting. We have a lot of wilt tolerant eggplant varieties which does not have the BT technology. We're trying to graft it, and we are leveraging the nurseries to see how we can take it forward. Philippines is just following Bangladesh now. The partnership was between University of Philippines, MICO and Cornell. We thought that, okay, since GM Corn is already approved in there, it should be very easy. But I think the system is also evolving. There was, for a couple of years, there was nothing happening. But I think for the last 2-3 years, it's just, we have seen approval of golden rice, food and feed, then cultivation. BT eggplant was approved for food and feed first, and then now it's approved for cultivation in just about 5-6 months ago. So this season they are already into demonstration trials, and then slowly they will also go for scaling up. Stalemate in India, I do not want to talk much. I think we are still there, so I don't have any answer to tell exactly when this situation will change, but I still feel it may change. I would say for India, it's an opportunity lost actually. See, the potential for BT technology has not been fully utilized or demonstrated in Bangladesh because of the area. India has 7.5 lakhs hectares area. Sorry. India has 7.5 lakh hectares of area, and if you see Bangladesh and Philippines are very small areas actually. So the technology and limited number of varieties are available. As a result, it's really difficult to demonstrate the benefit of this technology. The business model there, India has worked very well. Like you license the technology to several companies, companies will back cross into their own hybrids or varieties, and then now 95% or more than 90% cotton in India is BT cotton. That model is not there in Bangladesh yet. Technology is licensed only to a public sector. So that's again a challenge. Like licensing the technology only to the public sector is not just taking it forward now. So there is a need to bring in the private sector, provide the technology to license the technology to the private sector, and that's what the current phase of the project is looking at. And I would say if India had really deregulated BT eggplant, it would have been win-win for both the seed companies as well as for the farmers also. Because even in India, we have several hybrids, several varieties, and the technology has to be back-crossed or introduced into different varieties. Yeah, as a part of the PPP, we are mandated to publish our work. So we published the work on IRM, then adoption studies, reviews, everywhere we are, last 5-6 years we have published several papers, because that's mandated by USAID, so that people should know what's happening as a part of the PPP. We have to write blogs, case studies, so that's part of our project. Whenever this is one way to promote the technology and talk about the technology. Yeah, and this is my last slide. Yeah, I think it's a perfect example where a PPP has worked. And though there are challenges, we have realized what the challenges are, and we are seeing how those challenges can be overcome by bringing in a private sector partner in Bangladesh, which still is going, because the environment is not so good for private sector to participate in Bangladesh. The government is not so supporting the private sector to participate in GM research. Indian research carried out in India has gone to 2 countries, so that's a good example there. Regulations, political will affect the success of this technology in all the 3 countries. I think we lost this opportunity, but let's hope that our government also deregulates it. So I think that's what. So I would like to thank USAID for supporting it. Cornell is the main awardee. They got the award from USAID, and we were subcontracted to implement the project in Bangladesh. And Bari was our implementing partner in Bangladesh.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay Paranjape.
I'm sorry I was standing, you may have missed some of the things.
So I think people got the message. And I think one of the things that Dr. Vijay mentioned was that if the license is given to the public sector, progress is not as fast as it can happen with the private sector. I think that is a lesson learned, so we need to keep that. Thank you, Dr. Vijay.
Thank you.
So we'll come back if there are questions during the end when we have about 15-20 minutes for discussion.